Okay, Peter, so I wanted to talk about the Showtime show that went out last night, Sunday night, from Cleveland, Ohio. It featured, the main event was Jake Paul against Tyron Woodley. There was a co-main event, which was WBC, WBO and IBO female featherweight title fight between Amanda Serrano and Yamala Mercado, won by Serrano, kind of cementing her place as really one of the, the top pound-for-pound female fighters in the world. But all the attention was on Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley, and I just think this show was really interesting and kind of what it means for boxing and a bit of a direction this kind of almost celebrity boxing is moving in. Because interestingly enough, you remember when Logan Paul fought Floyd Mayweather, did such good pay-per-view numbers that Showtime then went and signed up Jake Paul to a multi-fight deal. Now, Showtime have been in the boxing business for 35 years. They know what they're doing. Jay Espinoza, who runs it, is a real boxing guy, knows exactly what's going on. And what they have decided to do is, obviously, they poached Jake Paul from the Triller Fight Club series, which was kind of what you might like to unkindly call freak show boxing, celebrity boxing, whatever you want to call it. It was like these were curiosities that people were watching, and they're saying it's not real boxing. Now, Showtime have seen this, and obviously they've gone with the argument that this pulls new eyes into boxing, and they decided to take Jake Paul as a main attraction, who brings a huge fan base, and kind of blend him with their traditional boxing offerings. So that's what they did, at the show last night. And their idea is that you will pull these new eyes in, but we don't want them just looking at the kind of freak show celebrity boxing. We will blend proper top quality boxing in with the show, and therefore expand the whole fan base for boxing. So that's what they're doing. That's what Showtime are doing. If Showtime are doing it, we've got to take it seriously. There's a lot of money involved. It's the pinnacle of the sport. So we had Jake Paul against Tyron Woodley. Now, obviously, Jake Paul is 3-0. He's previously boxed another YouTuber, an NBA basketball player, and an ex-MMA fighter. And he scored first and second round knockouts in those. So he's never been past round 2. So he's 3-0 and he's 24 years old. He was fighting Tyron Woodley. Now, Tyron Woodley is an ex-UFC champion, a welterweight champion, but obviously a very experienced fighter. In the UFC, previously a championship wrestler. He's 39 years old, so he's just his UFC contract just expired. So this was his pro boxing debut, but he was an experienced combat athlete. He trained hard for this fight. You could definitely see that weigh-in. The guy was ripped. He took it really seriously. And he came in and really gave it a go. And in terms of how the fight went, and so therefore as well, it was Jake Paul's toughest opponent. I would say by a long chalk. And the fight was scheduled for 8 3-minute rounds. So in terms of how the fight unfolded, it was more Woodley coming forward, Woodley being the shorter man, trying to get in and close the range for Jake Paul. I thought Jake Paul boxed quite well, considering he's a novice boxer going into 8 threes. He used the jab well, he went down to the body, up to the head. He looked good in the first few rounds, and then he did start to tire after the 4th and tired considering the 5th, and Woodley started to make up the distance a bit. And you've got to remember, I think, even though this is Woodley's debut, he's used to 25-minute fights. In the UFC, he's used to the sort of load that puts on your body. And really, however Jake Paul is being hot-housed, you can't really fully replicate those fight conditions. So, you would expect him to tire a bit. And I thought this was good, very good, rounds in the bank for him. But he did win the fight. It was a split decision. One judge going for Woodley and 2 judges going for Paul. I kind of gave it to Paul. I thought he'd done enough in the earlier rounds, and I thought he did just nick it, so Woodley is immediately calling for a rematch. Apparently, they'd had a side bet, which they had publicly said, this was instigated by Jake Paul, that the loser would have the winner's name tattooed on him. And he said if Woodley did that, he would, which Woodley said in the ring, I will do it. I will go away and get your name tattooed on me, and then we'll have a rematch. But obviously, there's big money in this for Woodley, so he's going to want the rematch. Jake Paul, I think, will probably move on from this. He got the rounds in the bank. And interestingly enough, this was a 5-fight card. And, down on the undercard was Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury was boxing Anthony Taylor. Anthony Taylor was 0-2. One previous boxing match, which he had lost. So he was coming into this fight, and Fury was 6-0. Fury won shutout. He won all 4 rounds, but not massively inspiring, so he goes on to 7-0. And Anthony Taylor drops to 0-2. But obviously, Tommy Fury is very much touted as a future opponent for Jake Paul. And you've got to remember that Showtime have put a lot of money into Jake Paul. It's a multi-fight deal. He is pulling in the numbers. This was a $60 pay-per-view telecast. And I'm told, although the number's not in, that it did sell well. But part of that deal will be that Jake Paul does step up his opposition. And this could be considered a step up. And I think Tommy Fury, kind of on this showing, would be an ideal step up, because obviously Tommy Fury has the name. You know, he's Tyson's cousin. You know, he's a very good-looking lad. He's previously been on Love Island. He's also got a bit of that celebrity stuff. You know, so it would be a little bit of a, but he does come from a boxing background. You know, he's trained by John Fury. So he is what you would call, for want of a better expression, a proper boxer. So this is where Jake Paul kind of has to head if he's going to keep, you know, keep pulling the fans into Showtime and keep kind of justifying his position, you know, at the top of the Showtime bills. So I think that's an interesting development, and I can really see Jake Paul against Tommy Fury, because the thing is with Tommy Fury, although he's kind of got that pedigree, he hasn't looked that threatening in his fights. I mean, the record of his previous 6 opponents was 14 wins, 174 losses, and 5 draws. So that's his previous 6 opponents combined. So, you know, the only guy he's fought with a winning record, I think, was his last opponent, who was 2-1. So, you know, he's not looked devastated in this early part of his career, where if he was going to go on, you would expect him, boxing these kind of people, to be stopping them. So I think, you know, they'll probably be looking at that and saying, maybe rightly, maybe wrongly, Tommy Fury is maybe not too dangerous for Jake Paul, and this is, you know, the fight that will come. Because I'll tell you what, you know, it would break the Twitter records. It would be a huge sort of show. So that's where I think he's going. I don't think he'll rematch Woodley. The rest of the show, you know, was interesting. Daniel Dubois was out again against the, you know, the very overmatched Joe Casamano, and that was a first round stoppage. Dubois knocking him down 3 times in the first round. As I've already said, you know, on the serious boxing, Amanda Serrano against Yamala Mercado. That was for kind of all the marbles in the featherweight division, dominated by Serrano, again cementing her place as a pound for pound. You know, one of the best in you know, in the female division. And also Ivan Barachnik against Montana Love. Barachnik was 20-2, Montana Love was 15-0. So it was his first defeat, with Barachnik taking that. So, you know, overall, I thought it was a good show. It was this blending of celebrity boxing. For me, it kind of worked. You know, it was a curiosity, and there was also good quality boxing on display. I think it's going to be interesting where Showtime are going to take this, you know, and how it affects boxing. But yeah, the Jake Paul Roadshow, the problem child moves on. Hopefully against Tommy Fury next time out, but we'll see. But overall, you know, I thought it was an interesting show, interesting concept, and a good show. Thanks, Peter.